Good evening. There you go. Today is November 19th, 2018, and you have found yourself in the Rowan County Commission meeting. And we are very pleased that you're here tonight, and we hope you find this meeting interesting and that you come away with it with something positive about our community. I'm going to do something a little different tonight, but I thought this was interesting that on this day in history, on November 19th, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln delivered a short speech at the closing of ceremonies dedicating the battlefield cemetery of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. His speech, which we now refer to today as the Gettysburg Address, contains the inspiring words, "We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth." And the kids that we have here today, we hope you're familiar with that address, and maybe like a lot of us older folks, you were asked to memorize it at some point in your education. Interestingly, another very popular orator during the time, Edward Everett, spoke for 2 hours at that ceremony. President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lasted only 2 minutes. My fellow commissioners would say, Mr. Edge, you could learn something from that. After Everett told Lincoln, quote, "I should be glad if I could flatter myself that I came as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." In spite of Lincoln's belief that the world will take little note nor long remember what we said here, that was his quote, his brief speech continues to resonate today in America's heart. So today's a big day, November 19th. Remember that. It's a big day in American history. The Gettysburg Address was spoken in only 2 minutes. It took me longer to do that than it took his whole speech. So again, welcome to County Commission meeting on this evening. We always begin with a couple of things. It is the tradition of this board and thousands of boards across the United States since the founding of this nation that we do a couple of things. Well, one thing is we have what's called a solemnizing prayer. And a solemnizing prayer, by definition, is for the commissioners. It's not for you. We take what we do very seriously. And we are here on your behalf, making decisions on behalf of the community. And to us, that's very important. So we seek wisdom as we make these decisions. So we have a chaplain that will come forward and do that. After that, we'll have a pledge. So commissioners, if you'll join me, we'll get started.
Lord, we're so thankful this Thanksgiving season that we have, Lord. We're thankful all the time for your blessings upon us, but we're especially thankful for the county commissioners and the work they do. And we, again, thank you for the dedication and love they have for what they undertake to do and to help this county, dear Lord. And I pray you'll give them the wisdom they need in this meeting tonight. Thanks for those who are with us tonight, Lord. We pray, Lord, as we look to thee for strength, for guidance, dear Lord, please direct us tonight, Lord. And thank you again for this privilege we have to bring these county commissioners before you tonight and ask you to please help them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Taylor, for being with us as always. We appreciate you. All right, so we have a couple of additions to the agenda. The first addition will be that item 1A, we'll add as item 1A a special recognition. And then after public comment, under item 2A, this is a little unusual, but we'd like to add a presentation by Rowan County Early College. I think typically those come after public hearings, but we'll try to get these folks out because we know, well, I don't know, maybe you want to spend the whole evening with us. So if not, then we'll add early college as item 2A. Do we have any other additions or deletions? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have, all right, then we have let's see, well, we did additions and deletions and an approval. All right, then minutes of November 5th provided for us. Motion to accept the minutes of November 5th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda, items A through F were provided, so we have a motion to approve a consent agenda.
So moved.
Timeout?
Just a second set of minutes, November 13th.
Oh, was there a second set?
It's right after 5th.
November 5th and 13th. All right, motion to accept minutes of November 13th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, special recognition.
Ta-da.
Mr. Price. So you all know what's happening. If we have a county director that retires, we bring them in here during a county commission meeting to spend some time to honor them. And so that's what we're doing tonight, is spending some time honoring a director that we have, Mr. Gary Price. Mr. Price was hired on May 28th, 2008 as a transportation coordinator. Only 2 years later, on December 1st, 2010, he became the county's transportation director. And then in December of 2014, because he's multi-talented, he agreed to serve as the director of both the Transportation Department and Veteran Services. Then, due to his proven leadership as well as his willingness to help where needed, Gary agreed to serve a brief time as the interim airport director beginning on June 9th, 2017. So understand, accepting this role made him responsible for overseeing 3 county departments at the same time. And of course, we tripled your pay when we did that, didn't we, Gary? Yeah, okay. He's laughing, so I don't think that's the case. Last November, the county became short on one of its 3 full-time veteran services officers, so once again, Gary stepped up to fill a vacancy. He took the required training so that he could better serve our veterans and their families. And so for the past year, Gary continued his strong leadership not only as the Director of Veteran Services, but by working in the trenches to help veterans and their dependents navigate all the facets of veteran benefits. Now, what you may not know about Gary is that he is already retired one time from the United States Army, where he served our country for 24 years. We are extremely grateful and proud of Gary for his commitment to Rowan County, and it's with great respect and honor and gratitude we also thank Gary for his time in serving this great nation. So Gary, we want to say to you, thank you for what you've done for this county. You have stepped up time and time again. And I know as we all talked to Aaron and we had issues going on, Aaron would say, let me talk to Gary, let me talk to Gary. What's that? So, well, what about Bob? Call Bob or something. It was always, let's call Gary and see what Gary can do. So we want to honor you tonight and thank you for your time with this community and the difference that you have made. And so if you guys would stand and join us, let's give him a round of applause. So do we have a photographer ready? Okay, so commissioners, we'll come out front and present Gary with this plaque. So the plaque reads, presented to Gary Price in recognition and gratitude for over 10 years of exemplary service to the citizens and veterans of Rowan County while serving as director of the following departments: Transportation, Veteran Services, and Airport. May 2008 through November 2018, with appreciation for his dedication and outstanding leadership, providing guidance, and to ensure the safety and welfare of the public. From the Rowan County Board of Commissioners, this 19th day of November 2018. Thank you, Gary, for your time and for your commitment to this community. Anything from you you'd like to say?
Just thank you, Aaron, for his support.
Thank you, Gary.
All the other directors and employees of Rowan County. Did a good job supporting me and everything. I appreciate the support the commissioners gave us in our new office space and all of that.
Gary's wife retired, seems like just a few weeks ago, but she already has, 2 weeks ago? 2 years ago. But she says she has a big list of things for him to handle. He's got family to take care of as well, so we wish you all the best. All right, so you ready for a picture? All right, those are always fun. Thank you for spending that time with us. Do we have anyone for public comment? Okay. We'll move on to item 2A then, early college. Charles, is there someone that's going to introduce this?
They'll introduce themselves.
Okay, who's up? Batter up. Give us your name and tell us what y'all are going to do.
My name is Oriana Reed, and I am with, one moment. I am Oriana Reed, and I'm with the Rowan County Early College Student School Improvement Team. We are here today to present our new ideas for the expansion of the early college. In school, we are taught according to a problem-based learning standard. We are given a problem and told to solve it. So we decided to use what we are taught to solve this issue. In our presentation, we will be talking about ideas for a new school building or a possible relocation into a building on the college. First, we would like to start with the history of the school. The Rowan County Early College is still pretty new. We are only in our 11th year. We have about 260 students with a maximum of 65 per class. Teachers and staff help us achieve our goals by offering support when it is needed. At early college, we are able to not only get a high school diploma, but also an associate's in either art or science. Our school used to be located in the 200 building, but then we were removed due to renovations. The school was then housed in temporary trailers, also known as pods. This became a permanent situation. Next, we will have Amy talking about achievements of the early college over the years.
Hey, if all of you who plan to speak, if you want to come forward, we'd love to have you all up here at once.
Good evening. My name is Amy Usita, and today I'll be talking about the achievements that this school has gained over the past 10 years. When I started middle school, my older sister started her enrollment at early college. After I saw all the success that she was having, I knew that this is where I wanted to go for the duration of my years as a high schooler. Then in 8th grade, I became even more drawn to this school after hearing all the success that she was having. After hearing that my sister told me that if I really wanted to pursue my dream career in the medical field, then I should attend early college. Early college because they make sure you focus and excel in your schoolwork with the end goal of getting great scholarships when you graduate with an associate's degree, as well as your high school diploma. As I got to learn more about this school, I was extremely surprised to find out that 92% of the RCEC students earn their associate's degree when the national average is at 25%. Coming from a family whose parents did not graduate from college, I'm proud to be a part of the 80% of RCEC students who will be a first, second generation college student compared to the other schools in our county. This school has a record of 100% graduation rate, which is extraordinary when you take into consideration the amount of dedication each student gives towards their education. Not only do all our seniors graduate from here, but 99% of them continue on with their education after high school. Most recently, our CEC has scored an A rating for these past 2 consecutive years, surpassing our neighbor schools. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Delgado. I graduated from Rowan County Early College in 2016, so I'm here to speak on behalf of my years at the early college. Because of all the opportunities that were offered to me at early college, I was able to attend Catawba College right after I graduated from there on a full ride scholarship, and I graduated in 2 years, so I obtained my bachelor's degree just this past May. In the past few years at early college, there have been some changes that have affected the opportunities that are available to students today. The move from the 200 building to the pods, which are the trailers, is one of the big changes, which is why the students from the improvement team have asked me to speak about that transition since they weren't there whenever this transition happened. As you can see in the picture that I took in the top right, that was the first impression of the trailers. My class started our first semester at the trailers in the spring semester of 2013, and as mentioned before, the move was supposed to be temporary. A lot of changes happened when the school was moved into the trailers. The main one was the space available. With less than 10 classrooms and only 1 hallway, the trailers impacted the learning environment at early college. In addition, the students today were also affected by other changes that came a few years following the transition. The students began to experience limited opportunities due to the changes, which is why the student improvement team is trying to bring that's what they're trying to bring awareness to. This includes access to the college facilities and space such as the student center. I took the bottom right picture in 2013. As you can see, we still had full access to the student center and even the surrounding areas. The students today do not have as much access to these areas anymore. New changes need to happen in order for early college to continue providing resources for students that chose this school. The first step towards a more appropriate learning environment would be a new or remodeled building for early college, and the students will talk more about this idea.
Hello, my name is Dalton Knupp, and I'm a sophomore at Rowan County Early College. A new building will provide the early college with more space and resources for learning and education. With an in-house gym and multi-purpose room, we can use to host events instead of having to reserve spaces in the college. 14 large classrooms will allow the opportunity of early college to have more children who wants to join, as well as 2 large science labs that will give more access to biotech learning. Some of our staff are forced to work in small rooms and offices, and even one had to move to the college. The new building will provide our staff with the room that they need to work. And with solar arrays that will be on the top of the new building, it will mostly be powered by renewable energy. And here is something I put together, what it will look like when it is finished. And this is where our current building is sitting. We hope that this building will give more opportunities for more children in the future of Rowan County Early College. Thank you.
My name is Claire Allen, and I'm a junior at Early College. I'd like to momentarily shift your attention to one of the fastest growing industries in the state. This industry, as it says on the PowerPoint, is biotechnology. At its simplest, biotechnology is technology based on biology. Biotech uses cellular and biomolecular processes to develop technology to improve the health of both people and the planet. The basics of biotechnology have been used for more than 6,000 years to make useful food products and to preserve foods like dairy. In these many years, it has continued to evolve and develop. It is currently one of the fastest growing industries in North Carolina. As a field, it employs more than 600,000 people and has sustained an industrial growth of about 31% since 2001. Such a large scientific field is obviously an ideal location to look for employment, especially for those like many of us at early college. Unfortunately, the majority of training and employment facilities are only in large cities. Currently, very few students have even heard of biotechnology, and even fewer know of its benefits. If Early College was able to expand its science department to introduce students to biotechnology and accommodate and cultivate their possible interest in it, these students could get a head start in preparing for a career in biotechnology. The expansion would allow the school to ensure that its students could find reliable and beneficial careers in which they could succeed, and an increase in the amount of students would allow even more students to do so. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Adrian Maldonado and I am a sophomore from our CEC. Today I will be speaking about how a new building would benefit students as well as the community. I will also be speaking about the 2008 facility master plan created by Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and lastly I'll be speaking about funding. So benefits of a new school there are various. One of the best ones is an increase of students. We want other students to be given the wonderful opportunities that we have been given, and we can do this by increasing enrollment from 65 to 100 students. These include private schoolers and homeschoolers. It also allows for more new learning opportunities and unique experiences, and can also better prepare students for their future career. As Claire has mentioned, biotechnology is the second fastest growing industry in North Carolina. So we'd be attracting more businesses and adding to the overall tax base. It would also provide more equipped learning environment and would stimulate hands-on learning. A new building would also benefit the community as well. By supporting our CEC, our community could create higher level educated residents, more engaged students, and more qualified workforce. More students also leads to more money going towards the Rowan Cabarrus Community College. As of 2014, RCCC got $4,000 per every 2.3 students per semester. This adds up to over $600,000 over the course of 4 years. So I would like to talk about the 2008 facility master plan that was created by the Rowan Cabarrus Community College. There are various sections that mention the early college, and this is one of them that says, space must be planned on the North Campus to support anticipated growth and enrollment in the Rowan County Early College. Obviously, this has not happened because we are still in trailers, so the plan wasn't fully fulfilled. We are open to an alternative solution, however, which is moving towards a 600 or 300 building, which was the original idea or the original plan. So, lastly, I would like to talk about funding. Ways we as a community could reach out to others would be by contacting community businesses, writing grants, and participating in fundraisers. I say this because we know that both solutions, either create a new building or remodeling some spaces on the early college for us, costs a significant amount of money. So we hope that with the help of philanthropists, investors, foundations, organizations, and of course the county commissioners, that we'd be able to achieve our goal in creating a more adequate learning environment for the students of our CEC. Oriana will now give our closing statement.
Before a closing statement, I would like to acknowledge the rest of the Rowan County Early College Student School Improvement Team: Jessica Harris, Victoria Newmiller, Ronnie Lilly, Taryn Lilly, Amy Nguyen. We would also like to thank everyone for coming, and we would also like to thank the County Commissioners for allowing us to speak today. At this time, we will be answering any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any questions from the commission? I'd like to say publicly that we're really proud of this group. When you look at the schools across the county, as seems like all of leadership is tasked with trying to improve the quality of our schools, not just here, but it's happening all across the country. We have a shining light here in Rowan County, and that is the early college. These are amazing kids, and over 80% of these kids are first-generation college kids. So these aren't kids of third and fourth generation college kids that are just carrying on. These are first generation, 80% of them, and that's a wonderful thing. This is our only school that was rated A, and they had no gaps whatsoever. And they have, for the past 5 years, had a 100% graduation rate, and over 90% of the students earned their college degree, their 2-year associate degree, during high school. And to reiterate what one of them said, that's amazing, because in other early college programs around the country, the average is only 25% of these kids earn their AA, and we have over 90% of them are earning their AA, and that's an amazing thing. And then I heard them say over 90% continue on to college. So this is a new generation of high school student. I got to tell you, I didn't know about early college when my kids were going through, or I tell you, I'd have tried to convince them to go there. This is a great thing. And we appreciate how you're representing this community, and for what you're doing, and for your leadership with Charles. Charles is a friend of ours, and we just appreciate you being here tonight. And parents, thank you for being involved and bringing them up here. This is important for them to be involved, and we're glad that you're involved in their education process, because I think everyone here knows the problems with education. Most of it could be settled with parents who are involved in their kids' education lives, and unfortunately we don't have that, and that's somewhat a sign of the times. And so we thank all of you for being involved in your kids' education. You are truly an asset to this community, family and kids. So let's give these kids a round of applause, and the families as well. Thank you for being here. All right, item number 3 on our agenda, Amy Lynn Albertson for Rowan County Extension. Welcome back.
Thank you for having us. So on November the 5th, we asked for a public hearing on the revisions for Chapter 8.5 of Farmland Preservation Ordinance, and you all were given that. Our advisory board chair, Kim Starnes, could not be with us tonight. He called me about 5 o'clock and said he's in the middle of the soybean field with a broken tractor, and still 2/3 to harvest. So he said he didn't think he was going to make it. So he asked me to speak a little on his behalf, just to say that he has a son who farms full-time with him, and his hope is to have one of his grandchildren follow. And things like the Farmland Preservation Ordinance make that possible for them to continue farming full-time with cattle and corn and soybeans. And then I also received a letter from Michelle Patterson, who also wanted to be here tonight but could not make it. Michelle, as you all know, is owner and partner with Patterson Farms. And currently, Patterson Farms has not enrolled in the voluntary ag district. And the reason was because in the ordinance, it was written that they had to have a plan from NRCS. And they do not, because they grow on plastic. And so that is, even though that's a good agricultural practice, and they do practice good soil protection, their entire farm would not qualify under the previous original form in the ordinance. Now that has, with the revisions, their farm would be eligible, and they plan to enroll their farm. They are working actually right now on their Century Farm application, and would be more than happy to enroll in the voluntary ag district as well. Michelle's letter says, "Dear Commissioner Eds, I am writing in support of proposed changes to the Rowan County Farmland Preservation Ordinance presented by Amy Lynn Albertson on behalf of the Agricultural Advisory Board to the Rowan County Board of Commissioners. These changes are important for several reasons. First, these changes will make the Rowan County Farmland Preservation Ordinance more consistent with the state ordinance. Additionally, the proposed changes will make it easier for more farms to enroll in the voluntary agricultural district. Farms enrolled in a voluntary agricultural district or an enhanced voluntary agricultural district will benefit when applying for funding with the NRCS for farm improvements. More importantly, we need to protect agriculture and our rural landscape where applicable in Rowan County. In the recent Rowan County branding study, our rural landscape was listed as one of Rowan County's assets. Alarmingly, less than 2% of our population is providing food and clothing for our population. This statistic should be a wake-up call to all of us. It is vital we protect farms, which are providing for our basic needs so the rest of our county can prosper. Thomas Jefferson once wrote in a letter to George Washington, "Agriculture is our wisest pursuit because it will in the end contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness." This quote still rings true today as our country's success depends on our ability to be self-sustaining. I hope the Board of Commissioners will support the proposed changes to the Rowan County Farmland Preservation Ordinance. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Michelle A. Patterson. Also, there are members from my board who are here today if you have any additional questions. Daryl Nichols is our vice chair of our board, Randy Eliam, and Mark Malden is here, and then Stephanie Frisbee is here in support of the Farmland Preservation Ordinance as well as a member of the Voluntary Ag District. So, are there any questions regarding the revisions?
So once again, the purpose of this is to bring Rowan County in line with the state ordinance?
Correct. With the definition of agriculture being redefined, and then the recent Right to Farm Act that was passed in 2017, and then those revisions that were made over the summer of 2018 to fall in line with those.
And they're not asking for any additional credits on any kind of special tax.
Nope.
Farmland is taxed at a certain rate for active farmlands, and and that is not what this is at all.
Mm-mm. This is more of an awareness program and a program to allow to give the signage, to indicate farming areas, and then it also provides protection and nuisance lawsuits, and then in the events of eminent domain, at least a public hearing is required.
So as you read through this, it's evident that the commissioners give up a certain amount of control
Right.
of this process. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because I don't think we need to micromanage everything, but I do understand that you'll be required to come make a report to
Yes,
us.
an annual report will be made to you as well as the Department of Agriculture.
And that'll be in person.
In person, absolutely.
Any other questions for Amy?
Are you aware, are there other farms that will be able to join?
Yes, particularly those that are under the 5 acre, well, who are under the, before they had to qualify for a present use value, which has an acreage requirement. Now they can be less than the 10 acres as long as they meet all of the other requirements. They're actively farming and file a Schedule F on their federal income tax for farming. So that is a benefit. Patterson Farms is probably one of the largest. Another one would be Morgan Ridge Vineyards, because they were considered agritourism, and that is in the definition now of farming. So all of those will be allowed in. And we're working on Cobble Creek right now, but Biff's dad's a little fussy. So.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, well, don't go far.
Okay.
All right, we'll do a public hearing now.
Okay.
Anything,
Just take a seat.
something else?
Nope, I don't have anything else.
Okay, anyone else have anything to add? No? Okay. All right, then we'll conduct a public hearing, and the public hearing is making modifications of the Farmland Preservation Ordinance. And so we'll open the floor now to a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against this ordinance, please come forward, state your name. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, do we have a motion?
Mr. Commissioner, I make a motion that we adopt this as presented. It's good for farmers in Rowan County, and it's good for Rowan County as much as it is for them.
Second.
All right, do we have any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. All right, next item. Real and Personal Property Manager Barbara McGuire. Or boss. You're not going to read all this, are you?
No, sir.
Thank you.
I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Obviously, we presented the schedules to you a couple of weeks ago in following format of the timing. So if there's any questions for it before the public hearing, contrary to most public hearings, this one you won't be able to adopt the schedules until your next meeting. So this is a public hearing for anyone who may have questions or may have comments about the schedules that were presented to you. Once you adopt these in full at your next meeting, then there will be time and opportunity. We have to advertise those for the next month, and they can appeal those to the Property Tax Commission at that point in time if there's any issues with either the normal schedules and standards or the use value standards. Both of those are presented to you. One is for the farming side and the forestry, and then obviously the normal set of schedules and standards that we go by in allowing staff and others to appraise the property. So we have that before you, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to, or during the public hearing, either one.
So your write-up says that this is done every 4 years, which would have meant that we would not, most of us would not have been a part of that 4 years ago. Were you here? Were you here 4 years ago?
I was. We've been through one. Actually, in 1995, the board made a decision to go to every 4 years. And so since then, it has been an every 4 year plan to do that. In North Carolina, it has to be done every 8 years. A lot of the counties are already on every 4. There has been discussions to go less than that, but that is an expense that is not wanting to be bored by any of the counties. So,
and is that because of the change in market? What's going on in the market? Why they would want to shrink it?
What happens is it takes approximately 2 years to go from beginning to end to get through this. But based on the market change and trying to adapt to it, whether it's going up or down, at that time there was lots of influence that says that. I know that Mecklenburg County did one not long ago, and they probably would like to have done another one sooner. But based on that and legislatively, it started off in the early 60s or 70s, basically, that said that every county would have to do it every 8 years. Some counties are still on that. They change very, very little from one year to the 8 year. But in a lot of counties, there could be as much as a 80% uptick during that period of time, and it really changes the values drastically. So every 4 years actually catches up. It's a good number to catch up with the market if it's changing in a big way. So one of the things that we'll do is the notices for us will go out, scheduled to go out second week in February for January 1/19. And it'll be based upon what's happening in the current market conditions for value without looking back at the January 15 value for whatever it was. So obviously Aaron and others will want to know a lot about, what's it changed, how much, what's the base look like, those kind of things. We'll be able to reveal that to him probably early February when we get notices to be sent out. So yes, that is 4 years is a very common number. I know that some have looked for less than that. The state is also looking to adopt things that make people do this based on their sales ratio. So if they drop below a certain sales ratio, below 80%, that can change. 4 years is a decision made because any sales ratio that drops below 90% in the fourth year, public utilities are also adjusted. So if our sales ratio came in this year on the fourth year at 85%, then the utilities would also be billed, instead of 100% of value, that they would get a break at 85% starting in the fourth year, and that would go through the seventh year. So it's probably the biggest reason that it's done on the fourth year, is to offset that, to try to make sure your sales ratio is above 90%. And so doing it. Obviously in a reval year, you want it to be as close to 100% as possible.
All right, any other questions?
I think we have a comment. You want to come up?
No, I just wanted to add, because Bill wasn't here, but
Sure.
In 95, the reason why we went from 8 to 4 was because of the town of Kannapolis that is split, part in Cabarrus and part in Rowan. And that's why the commissioners agreed to go every 4 years, so the whole town of Kannapolis would be on the same schedule.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you, Mark.
So hopefully they won't ever change their schedule to offset it. We will have a few changes for you at the next meeting, just some technical things that in changing software from one to the other, just a few minor things that we would present to you, but it's just a matter of a base square footage compared to a base rate, things like that. But that'll be something that we present before you actually adopt. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we will hold a public hearing, and so we'll open the floor to that. And if anyone would like to come and speak on the proposed standard schedules and rules. All right. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment, and I guess that's all we have, Jay, for today, and then we'll come back at the December meeting and vote on this. Okay, well, thank you for being with us. Item 5, Mr. Shelton from the EDC on Project Peach. We're not building a water tower, are we?
Gaffney? Not like Gaffney, no.
Not like Gaffney?
Happy to be here again this evening to present another project to you for consideration. Project Peach represents one of our existing businesses here in Rowan County. As most of you know, we have made a concerted effort over the last several months to get out and meet with our existing businesses to understand their needs and their plans for the future. And I'm pleased to report that there are very few, in almost nearly every instance, when we go out and visit an existing business, there are plans at some point in the future to expand. And that's been very heartening for us to learn that. And now in our project portfolio, we have a half a dozen or so existing businesses that we're working with actively to help them expand their operations here in Rowan County. And that's as important to us as attracting new businesses to our county as well. We want to be sure that we retain those that are already here, and we don't want to lose them to another locality when they're thinking about relocating or expanding. And so we have one similar to that this evening. One of our larger employers is considering another expansion here in the county. And to give you the overview, I'd like to introduce Scott Shelton, who will walk through an executive summary for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod.
Thanks, Rod, and thank you, commissioners, for agreeing to hear our presentation tonight. Again, as Rod said, this is codenamed Project Peach. It is a potential $29.5 million investment in Rowan County, which would generate about $1.87 million in new tax revenue for the county over 10 years. It would also lead to the creation of 58 new jobs by the end of 2019. As Rod said, the company behind Project Peach is a manufacturer in our county, an advanced manufacturer at that, that's been a valued employer in the community for several years. The company has an international presence and, is considering Rowan County for its expansion along with some other facilities, namely South Carolina and Ohio. This expansion would also lead to the investment in new equipment that would increase line speeds and allow them to be more competitive in an ever-competitive global market. Again, these 58 new jobs would come by the end of 2019, and they would pay an average annual salary of $42,000 a year with benefits. And I know this question comes up from time to time with these types of projects. As far as a breakdown of these new jobs, about 70% of these new jobs would be your production type jobs. And then after that, the highest category after that is engineers. Then there would be a few maintenance technicians, some office support, and then a few supervisors. But the vast majority is manufacturing type jobs and production type jobs. And the average wage for that is about $13.50 an hour starting. So again, mainly jobs for production. And the improvements they're talking about would come by the end of 2020. We foresee no zoning issues with this project. It's zoned appropriately now, as far as we can tell. Just your typical navigation with the Building and Inspections Department and the Planning Department. Based on their investment of $29.5 million, we think they'd be eligible for your Level 1 grant, which of course refunds 75% of the increased tax revenue generated by the project. And the company is asking for assistance under this policy. The fiscal impact foundation that was in your packet, of course, was based on the current tax rate of $66.25 per $100, and we did estimate all the improvements being done by the end of 2020. And there's the numbers there. And of course, over the 5 incentivized years, the county would collect about $898,000 in revenue. The incentive grant would total $674,095, and during that 5-year incentive period, you would retain about $224,000. Over 10 years, it would generate about $1.87 million. There's the grant we mentioned earlier, and then you would retain about $1.2 billion of new revenue. And of course, they would be subject to the incentive agreement we've talked about many times in the past, where they have to pay their taxes first before they got the grant, and certify that employment goals are met. If they aren't met, then the grant would be reduced accordingly. And if they ceased operations or eliminated the majority of their workforce, the agreement would terminate and they'd be required to repay the previous 3 years of incentives. In closing, again, 58 new jobs, about $224,000 of revenue over 5 years, and about $1.2 million of retained revenue over 10 years. And we'd ask you consider this to show support to a valued existing employer.
Questions for Scott? All right, don't go far. All right, so we'll be conducting a public hearing, so we'll open the floor for a public hearing. For anyone that would like to speak about this incentive grant that is being offered on behalf of Project Peach. All right, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. And commissioners, do we have a motion to approve the incentive grant as presented for Project Peach?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any other questions?
Can I comment real
comments?
quick?
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank you guys for all the work you're doing. One of the things that when I first started as commissioner, a lot of comments I would get is we seem to be forgetting about our existing businesses here in the county. And I've seen a renewed effort from EDC to try to reach out to those businesses out here. So I just want to thank you for that, because I'm not getting those complaints like I was before. And, you know, keeping what we got here is very important to us. So thank you for the work you're doing.
It's a great comment, Mike, and I know they would invite the commissioners to come to their monthly meeting. I'm your liaison to that board, but certainly you all are welcome to come, and one of the staff on the EDC gives a report each month of her activity and who she's met with, and they are really busy. And as she makes contact with these companies, they don't know why she's calling, because we've not been doing this in the past. And so sometimes it takes some convincing for them to meet with her. But once she's there, they are very happy to accept help. So appreciate what you guys are doing, Rod and Scott. Thank you, Mike. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Bob.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you tonight. Get this thing loaded up here. And put these on so I can see it. As it says in the agenda, I'm here to talk to you tonight to request some additional adoption events for the Rowan County Animal Shelter. In 2017, with the generous adoption of, probably a bad choice of words there, I'll say adoption again, special adoption events for the Rowan County Animal Shelter at a reduced price of 80% off. The commission generously gave us 12 events to work with, and I want to talk to you a little bit about the successes that we're seeing at the animal shelter and how we want to try to end up the year with a really, I think, exceptional situation. I put in some statistics that went back to 2011, and as you can see, when you look at these numbers, if we're talking about what we call the positive outcomes in the industry for animals, we've made a lot of progress. In 2011, with a total number of 6,863 animals seen by the animal shelter, because of the situation at the time, because we didn't have the tools that we're working with today, we wound up euthanizing 76.5% of those animals. We've come a long way from that. Over the next couple of years, there were dramatic reductions, and I would like to point out that that was before my time on board with Animal Services. A lot of credit goes to the staff that's there, that's been there, that has done a good job of finding ways to make things happen. And a lot of credit goes to some other people that I'll mention later on. But we have made a tremendous improvement, and in the animal care industry and animal shelter industry, that is, it's generally considered that anything below 10% is what people call a no-kill shelter. We don't particularly like that term because we think we can go, and we have proven that we can go beyond that. The reason that 10% is accepted is because some animals come through a shelter, especially an open admission shelter like Rowan County, that aren't going to have a positive outcome for a couple of reasons. But just to summarize this slide that we're looking at, last year we actually took our euthanasia total for the total numbers of cats and dogs that we saw in Rowan County Animal Shelter below 5% to 4.4% overall. And this year, year to date, with the intake that we've had of 5,179 animals total, we've euthanized 147 of those animals. And I'll talk about why in just a second, giving us a percentage to date so far of 2.8% animals not getting the outcome of adoption that we'd like to see. Adoption or redemption by owners of lost pets. But there's some things important to talk about that, and I've already mentioned that beginning way back in 2011, things were already starting on a very positive trend. And I did mention the fact that we're an open door shelter, and that means that every citizen of Rowan County, for whatever reason, can bring us an animal for whatever reason any day, and we have to accept it into our shelter.
Does that mean that there are shelters that don't do that?
There are shelters that, because of limited space and because I don't want to fault them for this, they consider themselves no-kill shelters. They have that limited space, and until they move an animal, they don't have room for another animal. And public shelters like us just don't have that option. We're here to serve the public, and we have a mandate to provide these opportunities for any citizen, for any animal that comes from Rowan County. And so we see a lot of animals, obviously. 5,000 to 6,000 animals a year typically come through for the past 8 to 10 years through our shelter. But because some of those animals are brought to us under conditions that we have no control over, they may be brought in too injured. Some of the animals that we see are hit by cars. Some of the animals that we see are brought into us that are too sick. One thing that we provide as a service to our citizens by ordinance is euthanasia services for animals, for folks that can't afford it. And we feel like that's the main thing to do, and it's part of our job as Rowan County Animal Shelter. And some of those animals come in too aggressive. So we'll never have a zero euthanasia rate. But the really interesting thing about this year, and the really exciting thing for us at the animal shelter about this year, is what I'm about to tell you. For 3 years, more than 3 years, since before I came on board with the animal shelter and animal services, we have not euthanized, should be an adoptable dog, period. The dogs that were euthanized were those too injured, too sick, or too aggressive. So far this year, for the very first time in the history of the Rowan County Animal Shelter, we've not euthanized an adoptable cat. That's a pretty tough thing for most places to say, because not only do we typically see a little bit more cats than we do dogs, we typically have a lot more trouble adopting cats than we do dogs, because cats, because of their breeding prowess, are pretty much available any day of the breeding season from your neighbor down the street. But so far this year, we've not euthanized an adoptable cat. The reason that this is happening is because we have developed what I think is a good relationship with some extremely good rescue volunteers. That's one reason. I think it's probably one of the bigger reasons, to be honest with you. The rescue volunteers help us to move a lot of animals that we could not move without them. There are not enough people in Rowan County that want a new cat or a new dog to take care of several thousand animals a year. And, you know, that's considering that they may not want some particular cat or some particular kind of dog. So it's just not feasible probably at this time. Hopefully will be in the future when we get our intakes down, to be able to find homes within Rowan County for all of those animals. Those rescue partners work hard to take animals from the shelter, to give them a little bit more time as our shelter fills up and we don't have the room. They give them a little bit more time to move them on to other situations. A lot of those animals, especially with the cats now, are actually moving outside of Rowan County and many outside of the state of North Carolina. We couldn't do that without those rescue volunteers that we work with. Another thing that's happened and a lot of this credit certainly goes to the Board of Commissioners, are changes in our policy. Some of those being our spay-neuter policy, our ability to have a vet on staff, our ability to offer special rates for our registered rescue volunteers at all times, and just a lot of support that we've gotten in the past several years, much support from the Board of Commissioners of Rowan County. We've also been very successful in bringing in-house volunteers. To be honest with you, we were a little bit concerned about that in the beginning because being in an animal shelter, you always have critics. We will always have critics. But the volunteers that have signed up, that come in and spend the time to help walk the dogs, to help clean the shelter, to help show the public animals on a daily basis, have been a very positive addition to what we offered through the staff at Rowan County Animal Shelter. It's been a great experience overall. Not to say that there hasn't been some minor hiccups, but overall it's been a great experience. And one of the things that helps us a lot and has helped us a lot for the past 2 years are these special reduced rate adoption events. To give you an idea, to put a number on things, just in the last 6 events, and that's half of what we have for a year, we have adopted out 546 animals on those in that total 6 events, for an average of around 91 91 animals per event. So it's been very successful, and what we've done to use it wisely is that we have saved those 12 events. We don't do them every month. We do them in the busy times of the year, and we try to do them when they have the most impact to help us move these animals on to a positive outcome and to do what we think is the best thing that we can do for the animals in general. This year, the reason that we're asking now, I think I've already alluded to one part of that fact is that we're a little bit excited about the possibility of going through this year. We can't promise that we'll do it every year, of not euthanizing any adoptable animal that has come through our shelter. And as I've said, we're using these events as needed. But this year, because we had a fairly early spring and apparently a fairly late summer, we've seen a very long and late season for kittens, and we still do have kittens coming in. We're past the nursing stage, but we still have young cats coming in, and they come in. When we get that situation, we'll see not just 1 cat or 2 cats, but we'll see 8 or 10 cats come in one group. Now, someday we hope to be in a world that we're looking at a better situation of not seeing those cats come in, but right now we still are. And because of the intake that we've seen and the way things have spread out this year, we used the last of the 12 events previously granted to us by the Board of Commissioners this month, last week actually, on the 14th. So the reason we're asking now is that we want to try to finish out this year very positive. We're almost home for the year, almost done with this year. Things are starting to slow down. But unfortunately, we still have a lot of animals in the shelter. And for some reason, the past couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of dogs come in. And right now, we're at capacity with dogs right now. And to give you an idea, today we had a good average day for getting animals out of the shelter. On the dog side, we got 11 large dogs out. And so you can begin to see how that 91 animals really makes a difference to us, to be able to create space and to be able to keep moving forward. And that's what we're here for tonight, is to ask you for permission to use a maximum, and we'll use them wisely. If we don't need them both, we won't use them. A maximum of 2 more special rate adoption events for the year of 2018. That's pretty much what I've got to say.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have a motion to add 2 additional special adoption events?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, a little monkey wrenching your plans here. I don't want to add just 2. I would like to have it so that the director has discretion to do as many as he feels is necessary, because we don't know the control mechanism of how many animals are going to come into the shelter, whether it's cats or dogs. or even rabbits and birds and everything else. So if this gets to be an issue where they're doing such a terrific job keeping this euthanasia rate so low, if he needs to have that reaction quickly, I wouldn't want to have to see him come here and go through the arduous process of getting us to vote to let him do something that's best for those animals. So I'd like to make a motion that we give the director the discretion to have as many as possible, up to, say, 20 per year. And then that way, he can feel like he's got the support of this board to do whatever's necessary to take care of these animals.
You good with that?
I'm great with that, to be honest with you.
What's the reason that you have to come ask us anyway?
Because when I asked the first time, I asked specifically for 12, and I certainly don't want to overstep the generosity that's already been given to us by the Board of Commissioners.
And the underlying reason is he doesn't have authority to waive fees.
Yes.
So, I mean, in your motion, if you would just state that, you authorize the animal services director to waive fees when he sees fit, only during a adoption event.
Would you like to amend your?
I'd like to amend my motion to that.
You can do that from here to the end of time.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion? Well, I'd like to say something, and I'm going to say, you're like, well, there's a surprise that I'm going to say something. Because this needs to be said. Bob Pendergrass, you are a kind man, and we just appreciate you. And the sense of calm that you brought there, because we know when things are going bad, don't we? Because we get all the emails and all the calls. And that stopped for the most part, and so we appreciate that. And then I remember coming in before I ever thought about running for a commissioner and sitting in the back when they still had a gas chamber here, and the room was full of people. And the one who really got this started and was emotionally moved to begin to make a change for this was Commissioner Pierce. And none of this started before Commissioner Pierce got, I don't know what the word is, just the conviction to change animal services here in Rowan County. And so, Commissioner Pierce, you deserve, I know it takes 5 votes, but it wouldn't happen without you. And so for that, this community thanks you. And then there's always upheaval during change. There's some great quote about change in the beginning. It's really messy, but in the end, it's something beautiful. And but again, back to our county manager who has thought through this and brought you in as the director, made the recommendations for the veterinarian, and has just done a great job. So. I took a picture of this. You can bet I'll have it posted. This is just something really that this board and this county ought to be proud of. And last thing I'll say is I do want to recognize the volunteers and those folks who the volunteer groups, the adoption folks that come in. We know that we couldn't do that without them. So if they hear this or they read it in the paper, we want them to know that we appreciate the work that they're doing with Rowan County Animal Shelter. And so this has been a great team effort, and congratulations to you. And thank you again, Manager and Commissioner Pierce. Well done.
I have a question before we vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Bob, we have animals that are being neutered and spayed before they leave the shelter, correct?
Yes, and as much as we can possibly do with the staff that we have.
Okay. So where are we at as far as a percentage of the vouchers that are coming back in that have been used to neuter and spay animals?
I can get you an answer to that question, but I would be guessing at it to give it to you right now.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Just follow-up question. How long are the vouchers good once they go out?
They have a period of time that's dictated. In some cases, it would be because the animal is too young, but they have a maximum of 90 days. So we typically try to get it done as quickly as possible if it's an adult animal that goes out. And one of the nice things about the rescue organizations that we work with is that they're all very serious about this, because quite frankly, Some of those folks work, in addition to their regular job, their tails off to do this too, and they want to reach the goals of that spay-neuter and reduce the problem on the incoming end. So they do have up to 90 days, but in most cases it's done fairly quickly.
Do we ever have like clinics for that, for people just bring their animals in?
We cannot do spay-neuter clinics ourselves because we're limited with our license. Our veterinarian can only perform surgeries or veterinary procedures except in emergencies on animals that are owned by the county, which would be animals that are past their stray hold period if they've been picked up by strays, or animals that have been brought in and surrendered to the animal shelter. So we can only do them within that window of, work on them within that window of time while they're in the shelter. We can't provide that for the general public. But there are some things that are out there that we're looking at. We had a really good meeting with some folks from Cleveland County the other week, and one of their staff down there that's been there for a while has a really good program that he's doing to get cats, especially spayed and neutered, because they're the big problem. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are kind of left to their own devices, unfortunately, sometimes, and produce large numbers. But we're looking at some ideas to try to reduce it on the outside, but we could not do the surgery ourselves.
I do have one positive story to share. A friend of mine, he and his wife have been caring for a cat colony for, well, ever since I've known them, about 10 years. But they had, I don't know, between 30 and 40 cats, feral cats. And each time a new one would come, they would trap it and take it in and get it fixed and then bring it back and turn it loose. Well, the other day when I saw him, he said, we're pretty much down to 0.
That's good news.
That's good news. Yeah, and that's why we need to spay and neuter. And I hope everybody that's watching this or reading in the paper will understand that that is so important to spay and neuter your pet.
That's incredibly important. What we're looking at potentially are there's some programs out there that offer spay-neuter to people that have low income and can't afford to do it themselves. And we're going to try to work with some partners to implement some of that here in Rowan County, hopefully next year.
Maybe come back and we can talk about that, because that's one thing. I was looking at the numbers. In 2014, we had 4,400 animals. 15, there was 4,500. Then 4,600, then 5,400, and so we're on this spay-neuter program.
It's going down and it's going back up.
And
yes.
It's going back up, and so we're kind of looking for, if I could coin a term, the spay-neuter dividend.
Yeah,
I think we're looking for, and so maybe that's not for tonight, but maybe that's something we can talk about in the future.
Definitely.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, if not, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Bob.
Thank you very much.
Next item, discussion regarding December 18th meeting schedule. I think typically we drop the second meeting in December so that Carolyn can go Christmas shopping. Mm-hmm. And is that the reason? Yeah. Okay. So do we want to do the same this year? All right. Make a motion. We drop the second meeting in December. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item, selection of NCACC voting delegate. Is anyone going to this meeting? You're going? Huh. You know?
Make a motion.
Well, then.
I second it.
Yeah. All right. We have a motion to make Commissioner Klusman the voting delegate for the Legislative Goals Conference in Raleigh in January. We have a motion, a second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed?
And just to share with you, I have been elected to the board of directors for NCACC.
Wow. Well, very good. That's impressive. Nice. Thanks. All right. Financial report.
Okay.
The first graph shows annual cumulative revenue comparison, and we are at the same number as a year ago, which is $57.7 million through the month of October. As you're going to see in a minute, sales tax are up and property tax are up. So the reason that this is very flat is because in November of 2017, the state took over the Child Development Program, and so those funds are no longer running through the county, and that was about $800,000 through the month of October a year ago. Okay. Just so you know, we've collected 41% of budget through the month of October. The next is expenditures, and through October, we have spent $43.3 million, which is 28% of budget. The year before that, we had spent 28% of budget, and the 2 years before that, 27% of budget. So we're where I would expect to be. The next graph is property tax, and our tax administration office has done a great job and collected $47 million, and this is through the month of September, which is an increase of roughly $800,000 from the prior year. We are, for the last 3 years, have collected 59% of the property tax budget through the month of September. So that just shows what the discounts and how that impacts when property taxes are paid. The last two graphs are in sales tax, and we have 1 month in, and that is the month of July, and sales tax collections were $2.1 million, which is $160,000 greater than July in 2018, in both years, and in the prior 2 years before that, that's 8% of budget. So we're where I would anticipate being. And the final graph just shows a little bit better that that $160,000 increase over prior year for the first month. Of course, sales tax is very volatile month to month, so we'll see. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Yeah, Leslie's, does this sales tax figure here also include the new sales tax on labor?
It does.
Okay.
It does. I think that's why you see the sales tax and labor actually started 2 years ago. So all of 2017 and 18 had that tax. So that's why 2016 is so much lower.
Okay. All right. Any concerns?
Not at this time.
No. All right. Thank you, Leslie. All right. Next item is budget amendments. Do we have a motion to approve? Just a couple of them there.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We have a closed session. I got a speech to read. I move the board now enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143318.11A1 to consider approval of minutes of closed sessions held on October 1st, 2018, and 143318.11A2 to consider honorary award in recognition, and 143-318-11A3 for attorney-client privilege. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and we'll get started as soon as the room clears. All right, we're back on. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good night.